So a couple of years ago I bought a 55-inch TV and I thought it was absolutely huge. No guys, this is huge. This is LG's latest lineup of massive 4K NanoCell TVs. This one is 86 inches, it's 4K, it's 120Hz, it's crazy. I was going to put it in my gaming setup in the office, however it's so big that when it arrived I literally couldn't fit it up the stairs. My office is on the 3rd floor with some pretty tight staircases, so I had to put it in the living room. But either way, thanks LG for sending it over. I appreciate the new TV. It's insane. So I'm going to take you guys through all the features today. It is literally the craziest TV I've ever owned personally. Like, the picture quality and sheer size of it is just nuts. I feel like I'm at the cinema. I know this video won't do it justice, but I'll try and give it my best shot. By the way, tell me right now, what's the first thing you will do with this TV if you just got it? Game or movie? Let me know in the comments. So first off, there are plenty of options to choose from in the LG NanoCell lineup, depending on your budget. The one I've got here is the Nano 91 86-inch model. There's also a 75-inch, a 65, and a 55 available. The 55-inch is the cheapest of the bunch. You can pick it up for less than £1,000 here in the UK, with the 86-inch model retailing for around £3,500. So what's special about the NanoCell lineup? Well, NanoCell is an LG exclusive technology which uses really tiny nanoparticles to filter out impure colours, basically giving you a more pure and realistic looking image. I've seen some pretty bad TV panels in the past where colours either look washed out or just off in general, and accurate colours do go a very long way into making whatever content you're watching enjoyable. There was a scene the other day in a Netflix show I was watching with this guy's face, and like, the skin tone was just absolutely perfect. It looked real. Now, just going back to size, it is honestly just impossible to convey how big this thing is using pictures or videos. I did take a clip of me standing in front of it so you can get a sense of the scale. I'm around 5'10", and it's basically the same width as my entire arm span. Also, I feel like these clips on my wide angle lens actually give you a slightly better feel of the size. I know the camera's quite close to the screen, but it feels that big even when you're sat a couple of meters away. So movies. Movies on this thing are epic. Not only have you got the pure colors thanks to the NanoCell tech on this huge 86-inch display, it also has full array local dimming. So rather than just being edge lit like a lot of TVs, there's basically a bunch of LEDs behind the display which can be independently controlled. So if there's a dark area in the image, like a shadow for example, the TV can dim the backlighting in that specific area. So in essence, you get a perceived contrast ratio boost, the blacks look really good, and full array local dimming works perfectly alongside HDR, which this TV also has. More on that later. But also for movies, we do have Dolby Vision support. Now, although this TV looks great for movies and Netflix, it's also perfect for gamers. It actually uses an IPS panel, which are generally favoured among PC gamers over, say, TN panels. Viewing angles are awesome, like you can pretty much be anywhere in the room and this TV still looks good. Not only that, but this thing is 4K 120Hz. It's basically every gamer's dream. Now, up until recently, you wouldn't have even been able to run this TV at 4K 120Hz because you need HDMI 2.1. Now, the TV supports it, but you've got to either have a next-gen console, so PS5 or Xbox Series X, which in theory supposedly do 4K 120Hz, or a gaming PC with an NVIDIA 3000 series or AMD 6000 series GPU, if you can get hold of one, which you probably can't at the moment. If you fulfill either of these requirements, you are good to go for 4K 120Hz on this TV. Alternatively, if you don't have HDMI 2.1 devices and you still want that high refresh rate, you can dial down the resolution and run at 1440p 120Hz instead. At the end of the day, the issue really comes down to bandwidth. HDMI 2.1 supports transfer speeds up to 48 gigabits per second, whereas HDMI 2.0B only supports up to 18 gigabits per second. But anyway, back to gaming. Now, anybody that's played games above 60Hz will know just how smooth and fluid it feels. I use a 120Hz monitor on the daily to game on, and yeah, playing at high refresh rates in general is just a really enjoyable experience. Not to mention, very important to competitive gamers. Someone playing, for example, Counter-Strike or Apex Legends at 120Hz will have a competitive advantage over somebody playing at 60. Now, high refresh rates are all well and good, but what about input lag? Well, this TV actually has a technology built in called Auto Low Latency Mode, which will detect when you boot up an FPS game, for example, and automatically enable a low latency game mode. So you can play all of your favorite titles on this TV without having to worry about input lag, which is the main reason I would say that most PC gamers avoid gaming on TVs. That input lag is a killer. But yeah, with this TV, you're all good. Plus, it does it automatically, so no manual switching. Now for us PC gamers, something like CSGO is easy to run at 4K 120 FPS on the latest graphics cards. However, you're going to have to heavily dial down settings to hit 120Hz on more demanding titles at this resolution. In that regard, I'm honestly happy just playing at 60Hz for titles like Horizon Zero Dawn and Need for Speed. The sheer size of this giant TV, not to mention how good the actual image is, more than makes up for that in my opinion. And honestly, even if I were a competitive gamer, I wouldn't play CSGO on this thing. It just doesn't really make that much sense to me. But for immersion, it is just fantastic. Like, I could honestly play games on this thing all day. I feel like anybody that buys this TV will have a newfound addiction to watching movies and gaming. And did I mention it also supports variable refresh rate? It's got AMD FreeSync and it's G-Sync compatible. And to top it all off, this TV does have HDR10, HLG Pro and HDIG support. So again, the contrast you're getting on this thing is really good. The whites are extremely bright, the shadows are dark. And HDIG support specifically will make sure that the games you're playing in HDR look as good as they can possibly look. Like I said, this TV is basically a dream come true for gamers. Now when you finish gaming on this thing, you can use the magic remote to navigate through all the menus with the on-screen pointer. If you've ever used a Wii remote, it'll feel very familiar. It is of course a smart TV, so you can install a bunch of apps on it from the LG App Store. You name it, it's probably got it. The remote itself actually has Netflix and Prime buttons built into it, so you can instantly launch them. Now one thing I absolutely hate about smart TVs is when they're slow. Thankfully, this one is really quick and responsive. I never feel like I'm waiting around for it. Apps load quickly and it keeps them running in the background as well, so you can switch between them really fast. You've got a voice assistant built into the remote too, so you can ask it to load up YouTube, for example, and it'll do it. The whole UI experience in general is great. Everything is easy to find, it's fluid. They did a really good job. I want to talk about the speakers for a second because I was actually genuinely impressed with how good they sound. Like, I always expect TV speakers nowadays to sound terrible just because of how thin TVs seem to be getting. But I was just sat there watching a movie and I was thinking, these sound pretty good. I mean, TV speakers are never going to replace a proper sound system, but I think you'd be impressed with these. In terms of inputs and outputs, you've got 3 USB 2.0 ports, 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, those are the ones you want to use for 4K 120Hz gaming, 2 regular HDMI 2.0 ports, and then you've also got a LAN port for an Ethernet cable, optical out, along with a 3.5mm audio jack. One of the HDMI ports is also eARC ready, which is basically an improved version of regular ARC. It's got much higher bandwidth, so you can transmit high bitrate audio signals like Dolby Atmos over HDMI to, say, your AV receiver. Pretty cool. Just a brief word on brightness. This thing is crazy bright. Like, if you're in a very dark room, you're gonna want to dim this thing down quite a bit. It does have various picture mode settings that will cater to the different kinds of content you're watching, including this new filmmaker mode, which basically aims to let you watch movies the way they were intended to be watched. A lot of TVs do weird stuff with regards to motion smoothing and use image processing techniques that filmmakers were getting pretty annoyed about because that's not how they wanted you to see the movie. So filmmaker mode fixes that. Just going back to brightness though, you'll have no problems putting this TV in a room that gets lots of daylight because it's really bright, and reflections aren't too bad either. So yeah, it's a crazy TV, it's absolutely huge, you could say a bit ridiculous, and trust me guys, I know you've seen it on video, but it really does not do the size justice. It's a lot bigger than you think. It will dominate most people's living rooms, and you will get addicted to watching movies and playing games. It's basically like having a cinema at home. It is a lot of money, £3,500 or nearly $5,000, but to be fair, you are getting a lot of TV, and there are plenty of other options available in this range to cater for different budgets. Just be aware that some of these smaller ones don't have 4K 120Hz, for example. That's only a thing on the higher end models. But if you really want to go crazy with resolution, they even do 8K models. I'll leave some links down in the description if you want to check them out for yourselves. Thanks again to LG for sending this thing out, and thanks to all of you guys for all the support recently. I've got the 50k sub special video in the works that should be ready soon. And guys, I have so many videos on the way for you, so get yourself subscribed, and if you want to help me out, a like rating on this video would be appreciated. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter for all the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, with that being said, hope you guys have an awesome week. I'll catch you all in the next one.